Thanks for your interest in Eco Together. Eco Together is hosted by Transition Bath, which is a local charity in the Bath area, although it can run anywhere in the world. And it's inspired by a project called Transition Street, which ran very successfully about a decade ago, about 2009, and is now being reformulated. So a lot of inspiration to that project. So the vision for Eco Together is to really build the eco network. Like to think of this really as wouldn't it be wonderful if really every part of the UK or the world had people who were involved in protecting the environment in every neighbourhood. So that's really the grand vision. Also to build community, because whatever we're going to face with climate change and the cost of living crisis and so forth, we're definitely going to need stronger community ties, as we found during the COVID pandemic. Experientially, though, whilst we can talk about the theory behind Eco Together, really, when you get down to it, it's a bit like a book club. So you get together with a small group of people, you reflect on some written materials, and you just have a good old discussion and a good old chat about them. It's also a little bit like a choir. So often it can feel quite isolating, caring about climate change and the environment. But with Eco Together, you're in with a group of people who's very much like-minded and all wanting to do something to make a difference. So it can feel like that harmonious coming together that you get, the feeling that you get when you're in a choir. And here's one of our Eco Together pilot groups. So what we're doing there is we're actually celebrating having completed the Eco Together 5 sessions. And it's not very often that you actually sort of celebrate when it comes to climate change. Tend to feel a bit guilty, or you tend to feel a bit inadequate, like you're not able to do enough. But each of these group members had taken some really positive action, and we'd seen each other taking action. And so that felt really good. And so we were having a good old celebration, and that's really important. So how do you do it? Quite simple. It's designed, we've put a lot of time into making sure it's simple, actually. Put a lot of effort into that. So you get together 5 to 10 people, and it really can be any 5 to 10 people. It could be your friends, it could be your work colleagues, it could be a faith group, or through a school. It works particularly well with neighbours, so because you get that added benefit of that sort of seeing the people all the time and having a meaningful conversation with them. So I've run 2 pilot groups in my neighbourhood, and it's great in a neighbourhood as well. But whatever the group, whoever that you draw the group members from, you meet 5 times. Use the materials to guide each session, so you don't have to think through what you're going to do each time. It's all laid out for you. You discuss and choose activities each time that suit you, either your own activities that have been on the to-do list for a while but just waiting for some inspiration, or there's plenty of ideas in the materials. And this last point is really important. It's not a group that's trying to get necessarily everyone to do the same project. What it does is it starts from the position that we're all going to, at different stages in our lives, be able to do different things, and it's kind of working with what you feel able to do at this point. And that actually often turns out to be quite a lot when you've got the support of the group, either big or small things, and that's always worth celebrating. As I've said, always end by having a celebration. And it's really targeted at people who already care. At the moment, that's most people. 84% of people in the UK are concerned about climate change, and it's really high globally concern about the climate. Problem is, though, that we all face barriers to action, and some of the ones that I've observed are right here. So, for example, it's just too awful to think or talk about. Start thinking about climate change, and it's bad, which makes you kind of not want to think about it. It seems controversial still. It doesn't seem like other people are doing anything, and maybe they don't agree if it's a bad thing. The solutions that are presented, we're always getting told to do things to stop climate change, but sometimes these things can be overwhelming, such as go and glue yourself to a train or something, or they can be expensive. Go and get an electric car, and so there's a lot of people for whom those things aren't really possible at that moment in their lives. So it can seem like then, as a result, what can leaves you in a position of saying, what can I do? Also, it can seem like some of the solutions are just ineffective. So you've got a massive problem like climate change, turning off the lights in your house maybe doesn't seem like it's going to work. All this leads to the feeling that sort of no one else is doing anything. So, you might read something really bad in the newspaper or see something really bad on social media about climate change, and then you look out the window and you see life carrying on just the same, airplanes flying, cars driving, and you can sometimes feel like, well, oh, is anyone actually doing anything? And I think this is all made worse by the fact that our lives are so busy. So even for retired people, you think, oh, I'm going to retire, have a bit more time, but life gets full very quickly for most people. And even if there are gaps, they're often filled by Netflix, by scrolling through the internet, screens. And so there just isn't the time to think about it or do anything. And all this leads to disempowerment, feeling like you can't make a difference, or disavowal, which is this ability to just carry on as normal, even though climate change is really bad, all of which is quite miserable and can lead to sort of climate anxiety and concern. And it also leads to this spiral of silence. So this is the idea that because it is quite awful to talk about, people don't, and then people don't realise that other people care. So leads to this astounding fact that in these surveys that have been done, that 70% of people think other people are not worried enough about the climate. So, you're worried and you're concerned, but it doesn't seem like anyone else is. So you don't bring it up in conversation because they might not agree with you. And it leads to this spiral of silence that sort of perpetuates. So Eco Together really sets out to address some of these barriers. So in terms of addressing some of the overwhelm and confusion about what you might want to do, it has some really simple materials. So it has the information pack. You can see there that it's set out in a very approachable way. And it has activities that can be for anyone, regardless of where you are in your life at the moment. You might own your house or not. You might have a lot of money or not. And there's something for everyone in there, and also in the activity sheets. They really, these are something that you complete before each Eco Together session. Takes about 30 minutes of preparation before each session. That's all you go through and really think through, what am I going to do about this particular topic we're working on? And that can either, like I've said, be your own ideas or ideas that are on some of the lists that we've researched very carefully. And there's also a resources list with links as well. So to save you going completely down the internet rabbit hole, there's a list of resources. This list is for Bath, but you can easily adapt it to your own area. And it's got some national links on it as well. So it sort of does some of the research for you. And we put together information from lots of different sources. So here, for example, it took quite a bit of research to put together this chart that just shows the relative impact of different actions you can take to save carbon dioxide. So anything from one less long haul flight, which saves 5 tonnes, all the way down to maximising recycling, which saves 0.21 tonnes. And this can help you weigh up, what's going to make the biggest difference. And obviously, these are all good things to do. And it depends on where you are in your life, but this gives you a sense of the impact of different actions, for example. And really, Eco Together, I suppose, in the first session, you get together with your group, you decide who's going to run the sessions, because you take it in turns to run the 5 sessions, so it's not all one person having to do it all. And the first thing you have is a bit of space to actually think about how you might make a difference. And it's a bit like superheroes. So you see this little picture. This is a picture of some superheroes, and they've all got different powers. And that's a bit like all of us. Our lives will have led us down a certain path that will have led us with certain abilities to use certain powers, and maybe others we can't use as well where we're at in our life, and that's fine. Eco Together just asks you to explore what that is for you. And we think that there's 4 main powers. So there's lifestyle power. So that's we know about 80% of people are already doing things in their lifestyle, which is great about the climate. But there's lots you can do in your lifestyle, and this gives you time to think about that. Community power. So this is an interesting one. Obviously, you're part of a local neighbourhood, but you're also part of other groups as well, work, social groups, faith groups. And in those groups, in those networks, and with people or people who are like you, you're the best messenger. You're the best person to be a champion within those groups, because it's people like you. And so we ask you to consider what groups you're in and how you might make a difference through that. And that doesn't cost anything. It's just, getting your group and being a champion and getting your group to do things. Advocacy power. So we tend to think of this as influencing decision makers. This can often seem like it's 2 extremes, either signing an online petition, which we can do a lot of. It's quite an easy action, all the way through to chaining yourself to things and doing non-violent direct action. But there's actually a heck of a lot in between those 2 ends of a pole. There's creative actions, like speak to your counsellor. You can do an art exhibition that influences a decision. You can work with your local school. There's all sorts of things you can do there, and it just invites you to consider that. It's not going to be for everyone, but might be something you could try. And then this is all multiplied really by the fourth power, which is communication. So we've talked about the spiral of silence, and this really is your opportunity to break the silence. So you don't have to convince anyone about climate change. We know most people actually already care. What they're waiting to hear really is that someone like them actually thinks it's worthwhile doing something about it, because then by hearing what you're doing about it, that gives them permission to do something about it as well. Someone like them is doing something, thinks it's worthwhile to do something about climate change, and that is how change happens. So it's just quite simple. You talk about what you're doing. You can say, I'm in this group called Eco Together, and we're doing all these things. What do you think? And then you can just listen to what they think and have a chat about it. And that can really amplify everything else you're doing. The next 4 sessions really go over the areas that we can influence. So energy, transport, food and resources. Simple pointers on all of those actions you can take if you aren't quite sure what to do, different things you can try between sessions. And each session is really the same. Like I said, you take it in turns to run them with the group members. And it's always just reflect back on what you've done since last time, and you can kind of celebrate or commiserate and share tips on how to do things. Then you discuss the topic, energy, transport, food or resources, and then you decide what you're going to do about it, really between that session and the next. And it's this very simple structure. And then after you've done the 5 sessions, you can think what you're going to do next. Now, for busy people who this is really aimed at, might be it. 5 sessions, it's very deliberately only 5 sessions, because that's manageable for a lot of people that being involved in an ongoing group might not be. But some groups will decide, or some members of the groups will decide to stay in touch and decide to stay together. So this is us doing a litter pick. My son seems to have brought his lightsaber instead of a litter picker, but aside from that, we managed to pick a lot of litter. This on the right hand side, that's a group that's actually just decided to get more involved in promoting Eco Together after being part of the group. So you will find a lot of people do find their own way to stay involved in environmental stuff after the 5 sessions. And the proof is in the pudding, really. So this was after the pilot groups. We ran 4 pilot groups, and these are some of the results. So you'll see that some of them starting to use the various powers. So the first person has done some lifestyle actions, finally got around to doing solar panels, but also contacted the council, which was something that they hadn't wanted to do prior to being in the group. They hadn't felt like they could, but they're now very much in touch with the council about a particular issue they've had. And also feel braver about talking to people about the environment, which wasn't something they felt they could do before. The next person just really went for it, everything from doing a few lifestyle things to actually realizing they were quite angry really about climate change, and that the XR actually was a good fit for them. So they've gone out to join a national organization. And then this last person finally kind of had the support that they needed to talk to their family with teenagers about reducing meat consumption. So it varies. We're all different. We're all going to want to do different things, and that's the beauty of Eco Together. We celebrate every single one of those things, whatever it might be. But the best thing about Eco Together really that came out of the surveys that we did for the pilot groups at the end was the people. It wasn't really, it was great to take action, and they felt good about that. But what they felt best about was this thing about meeting like-minded people, having people to talk to about this thing that's on your mind quite a lot for many of us, and being inspired, yes, by the materials to some degree, but often it was actually by the participants, by just hearing what other people had done. And that was a lot of what people ended up doing in terms of actions, was doing what other things that other people had done, and they were able to really share how they'd done it. And that's just the lovely thing. It's a joyful experience being part of Eco Together. It can be really fun. I mean, as fun as climate change can be, obviously very serious as well in some ways, but it is about meeting like-minded people and knowing, starting to realise that you can do quite a lot. And this is really sums it up, this quote to end on really, which is by Rob Hopkins, who was the co-founder of the transition movement, which was the inspiration for this, which is that if we wait for governments, it will be too late. And I think we know that, we've seen that. If we act as individuals, it will be too little. we can't possibly tackle this on our own. But if we act as communities, it might just be enough, and it might just be in time. And really, that is what Eco Together is about, is building community and approaching this issue together. So thank you very much. And since you're on the website, you should be able to find all the information you need to get involved, and just, yeah, get in touch if you're interested. Thank you.